Hello, testing. Oh, mine's on.
Okay. Hello.
Here, 1 second, everyone. Sorry.
Talk amongst yourselves. Hi, guys.
Morning.
Testing. Oh, that works. Okay. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to celebrate the last day of Design LA. I'm Laura Eckstein Jones. I am the editor of Modern Luxury Interiors West Coast and Angeleno magazine, and I'm here with two incredible interiors legends. First, here on my left is Jay Jeffers, San Francisco-based interior designer, and he has a wonderful boutique hotel called the Madrona in Healdsburg. That's so beautiful. And we have Steve Cordony. He's an Australian-based interior stylist who recently came out with a new book called Moments at Home.
Exactly.
And there will be a book signing after this, so please stick around afterwards. So let me refer to my script here. But so we are here to talk about setting the scene, creating moments through styling and entertaining at home. And before we dive in, I just want Jay and Steve to briefly introduce themselves and say a little bit about what they do and their style and, all of that. So why don't you kick us off?
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Jay Jeffers, and I have offices in San Francisco and New York. New York is rather new, about 3 years old, but been in the business for about 25 years. And we do residential interiors, interior architecture and design, styling, art curation, all the things related to home. And as mentioned, I have a small hotel in Healdsburg, California, in the Sonoma wine country that was kind of an accidental purchase. Believe it or not, I saw it during the pandemic, and it was a hotel that was going on the market that I sort of couldn't get out of my head after I saw it. Had no intention of buying it when I saw it. And then found some investors and things like that and scraped it together and remodeled it and reopened it in 2022. So everybody should come out and see it.
Amazing. I will be there.
Good.
Hi, guys. My name is Steve Cordony. I am an interior stylist from Sydney, Australia. And I'm super excited to be here in LA with all of you. I've been an interior stylist for 18 years. And as Laura said, I've just released my very first book. So I've just kind of been on the road for the past few months, just going, where do I want to go? Europe, Italy, London, LA, New York, and traveling around and sharing the message of the book, which is, again, called Moments at Home. And for me, styling, interior styling, and putting those finishing touches on a space to make them feel really soulful and really personal. That is what I love about interiors. And so I worked with magazines for many, many years in the interior, editorial and advertising styling space. And now, I've got a company working with different brands around the world, and obviously, traveling the world with this book, which is the best part of this year. So it's been a great start to the year.
Mm-hmm. And seeing Beyonce last night, right?
Okay, guys, we need to have a full conversation about Beyonce. So how long do we have? Yeah. I'll keep that separate. But after the book signing and Beyonce talking about the concert.
I'm seeing her tomorrow night.
Yeah, Jay's seeing her tomorrow. He extended his trip, so she's got power.
I do have my cowboy hat in the car.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay, so let's dive into the topic. So when you're setting the scene for entertaining at home, how do you kick off the process? Do you have a theme or a story in your head?
Always. I think this is the thing for me, like whether I'm doing a room, like styling a room or renovating a house or doing a complete new build or a tablescape for like my family dinner on a Sunday evening, there is always one linchpin. It's like, it could be a beautiful fabric that I found in Morocco, and it's like, right, the colors are gonna go from the fabric, and I'm gonna use that fabric that I found on the napkins or the tablecloth, and then the colors in that napkin are gonna go to the flowers. And so there is always one kind of starting point, and it could be the smallest thing, like I said, a piece of fabric or a movie or a celebration, and then that sort of starting point always becomes the first element to create this world, basically, within the confines of an event, a tablescape, a moment at home. And so I think for me, starting with that, because it trickles down to everything: the menu, the guest list, the food, the music, the background music, the lighting. Every element starts from that story.
Yeah, I think about the two when I'm starting with an interior. Like it may start with a rug, or it may start with a piece of art that the client's using, or something like that. But I'm always thinking about entertaining. I think my own personal entertaining. I'm curious what you think about this, but like I feel like we are storytellers in everything that we do. Like I'm starting to feel like I'm having storytelling fatigue. And I've been doing this series of like small cocktail parties in my studio in San Francisco and also New York. And when I started doing them, I was thinking like, okay, should I have a theme? Should I have somebody come in and speak? And I decided to make it just a cocktail party, just a reason for someone to come over, forget about their lives for a little bit, meet somebody new, see somebody they haven't seen before. There's no theme, there's no speaker, and just have a bite to eat and a drink. And it's been really fun. It's kind of like the storytelling.
It takes the pressure off a little bit, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's fun.
Yeah, just about the people that you curate and, you know, having a good time and having some good drinks.
But I also think now more than ever, we're really bringing people into our homes because they're such sacred spaces. And so I think, you know, obviously, yes, we spend a lot of time and effort creating these beautiful, you know, worlds within our homes that represent us. But then I think the entertaining piece is just that cherry on the top moment where it's like, okay, well now how do I want to express myself and what I love and the food I love and the music I listen to and the people I want to be with. And so it is like the next level on top of that sort of like personal approach to your home, and then entertaining is that final moment that just gives you another moment of yourself and shares more expression of yourself or your family.
Yeah, emotional expression for sure.
Yeah.
So kind of backing up a little bit, when you're planning interiors and designing a home with entertaining in mind, how do you approach the layout? So if you have a client per se that, for example, that says, I want to entertain, that's very important to me when designing my home, what types of things do you consider to create a good natural flow for entertaining?
I'm literally thinking about it from like the minute I walk in the door. And even if the client says like, I don't entertain that much, I think to myself, well, after I'm done with this house, you're going to. But, but I think about it from the moment I walk in the door, or if it's ground up, like with furniture arrangements and that sort of thing. Like, you know, what does this room feel like if it's 4 people over for a casual get-together? If you're a family, what if you're having a family over? Where are the kids playing? Where are the adults sitting? If you're having a dinner party for 10, and if you're having a cocktail party for 50, how does the room flow throughout? How do you make the space feel intimate for everyone throughout that? And usually for me, it's like, I call it conversation areas, where, you know, whether it's an 850 square foot living room or a giant living room for a big home, I create, you know, maybe you may have your seating area for sofa, a couple of chairs, that sort of thing, but then you've got, you know, 2 chairs over in a corner, or a bay window with a banquette in it for late night canoodling, you know, on the sofa when nobody's looking and the candles are lit, and other places and pieces of furniture that you could bring into a group and create a smaller group. And those intimate areas, I think you can then sort of get through the room with a lot of people or just a few people, and the room still feels like it's intimate and sexy and interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, again, like you said, it starts with like talking to your clients and seeing how they want to live in this space. You know, it's such a personal thing, and so, you know, do you entertain on the weekends? Do you have a big family or small family? And I think for me, I actually love creating moments that sort of, you know, you don't necessarily have to entertain every dinner in the dining room. Maybe there's like I think dual purpose spaces are so important now and are really interesting to be able to take what you think you're supposed to do in a particular space and do it in another space. And so there's times where I'll entertain or have a cocktail party, but it might be smaller. So I'll sort of configure the lounge room, and that's in there rather than a sit-down dinner. Or, you know, how often do we love being around a kitchen bench? You know, I'm always around the kitchen table, and that's where I love to entertain the most, if it's more relaxed. But I think taking it out of the context of what you think is, how you think a room should be defined and what the purpose for that room is, I think is really important.
Don't you just love an Australian accent? I'm just sitting here going, do I have to answer any more questions?
Actually, funny, Sophie, my best friend, and I, we're here for a girls' trip. Also my book launch, but also to see Beyonce. We get quite a bit of, are you from London?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
We're not outback guys. We're from Sydney, so we're pretty city-centric, but it's quite funny. Yeah.
Well, I met Sophie the other night at Catherine's, and I was talking to her, and I have no idea what she said because I was just staring at her eyes and listening to her voice, and I'm like, do I still like boys? Like, Sorry, we digress.
Well, with that, we appreciate that. It's very sweet. But all week we've been saying how lovely everyone in California is, and specifically LA. Like it's just, I know I've been here many, many times, but it's such a lovely, lovely community. It's really, really lovely.
And it's very small, actually.
It is. It feels
You know, you
intimate.
look around and you know people, and it's nice.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
we're
Martin's
so
father
lucky.
back there. Hello, darling.
It's a great place.
Yeah, it's very special.
All right, back to the theme. So, what materials or finishes do you like to use in spaces for entertaining, or ones that are high traffic, likely to see a spilled drink or two?
Yeah.
Do you have any favorite all-weather kinds of fabrics that you like to use, or performance go-tos, or is it better to just not worry about those things and pull out the good stuff?
Well, we were talking about this a lot when we had our sort of pre-call, and I think now there's so many fabrics, and I'm sure there's lots of interior designers in this room, but now the performance fabrics are so amazing. You can get velvets and boucles and linens, and there's really a beautiful range of fabrics that really work. And so I've used quite a bit of them in those spaces specifically because I knew that I wanted a beautiful washed linen, upholstered armchair that I knew I would sort of entertain in, not just for the living space, but also when we have cocktail parties. And so I was thinking about that in the background, but for me specifically when I'm like entertaining, I feel like, and I think this is because of my mother, she has so much beautiful things, but Wedgwood and Waterford and all these pieces, but they're all locked up. And she never wants to use it. I'll never forget our queen, Oprah, said, use your good stuff. Use your good stuff. And so I think, if I find things overseas and I think, oh my God, that's the most beautiful silverware cutlery collection, I'll use that like day to day because it makes you feel special, and we should feel special.
Yes, I think I agree with that. Like, use all the good things, use them all the time and all that. I use performance fabrics too and things because they have such good hand now that you really can't tell the difference. But I've always sort of designed with that in mind, like your home not being too precious. Like, I don't even want your family or your friends to come over and feel like they're afraid to put a drink down or afraid to sit down. You're never going to see a silk velvet sofa in a design where like one butt print, one person sits on it and there's a butt print in there for life. Like, you don't want that. But I think also it's a matter of like when you're sitting, when you're entertaining, like where does your eye go? Especially a dinner party, I always think about the ceiling. Like a white ceiling in a dining room is a no. You have something going on up there. Whether you have a beautiful chandelier, but then past that, what is it? Is it something sparkly? Is it wallpaper that's texturized? Is it a mural or something like that? I think about what's going on in the rest of the room when you're talking to somebody and then your eye catches the light fixture over there and you're like, ooh, what's that? Who's their designer?
Yeah.
It should be a conversation starter. Yeah. And funny enough, on the cover of my book, we did a wallpaper, this Excel wallpaper mural around the whole side. And whether someone's coming, my niece or nephew who are like 7 and 9, should know their ages, or an electrician who was putting the chandelier up, or my parents, it's polarizing, but it's a conversation starter, and that's what those spaces should have.
So the kitchen, we talked briefly about the kitchen and how you love entertaining casually in the kitchen, but it seems that even if it's a more formal thing, it's where everybody ends up, no matter what.
Always.
So what are your tips for making that space feel open and less cramped, especially when you're entertaining a crowd?
Yeah. Well, I don't really change that much. Like sometimes I'll shift some chairs just to make it a bit more sort of open and spacious, but for the most part, I'll kind of just enhance everything that's already there from day to day. And so I kind of like to, again, everything always comes back to that story and that theme. So if it's like an Italian thing, instead of having like a big beautiful thing of flowers, I'll do a big bowl on the island bench with, lemons or tomatoes and just really amplify the styling, aesthetic. But in terms of like functionality, I try to kind of keep it just how it is usually day to day, but just bump it up 20%.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I think that, luckily today a lot of our kitchens are open to other rooms, whether it's a great room in the whole place or it's a family room or that sort of thing. But even if they're not, I try to make it feel like it's a little more a part of the house. I mean, you have to have function is king in the kitchen. If it's not functional, it's not successful. Yeah. But doing things like having places for art, and it's very sort of in vogue right now to not have upper cabinets. And if you can do that and maintain the function, having some shelves with some nice accessories and things like that on it are great. You know, I love an island because it sort of makes like the work part of the space one and the people part of the space the other. So you can kind of control it a little bit.
Yes.
But otherwise, you just have to deal with people in the kitchen because especially if you're cooking or if the bar's there or something like that, then people are going to be in the kitchen.
Yeah.
But is there a way, if you don't want them in the kitchen, do you have any little tips on redirecting?
Totally, because I think that's up to really the host. Is sort of like, so you know, I'm thinking about my country house, and there's a couple of entrances, and usually everyone comes through the back door, they don't come through the front door. But if you were kind of wanting to have something on that side of the house, you would kind of get them to come in and create like a beautiful, you know, installation. Maybe there's like a beautiful grazing board on the foyer table, and keep them at that side of the house. Or vice versa, you know, you could do that the other way.
Yeah,
I think
move the
really
bar.
Correct. The bar, 100%.
Put the bar
Alcohol.
on the other side of the kitchen, and you will have that will be successful. I think.
Exactly right. They'll always follow
Food
the bar.
like keep it over there.
But even music, you know, lighting, candles, you can really direct people through a space with those sort of more intangible elements at home, you know. So music, you hear it, okay, you're going to be naturally drawn to that, or a scent, or mood lighting. You know, you're naturally going to kind of want to go that way, which I think is good. It's an easy way to kind of navigate.
So just building on that, talking about lighting, what are some of your strategies for using lighting to create warmth and ambiance and to make guests feel good and also look good? You know, people will come back if they look in a mirror at your house and they look great. I mean, lighting is so important.
Yes.
Low lighting.
Low lighting.
Yes.
Yes. No mirrored tops on tables. I've done many, many events and weddings and things, and like, this is not a good view for anyone. Like that kind of perspective is not fabulous for anyone. But you're right. Like I think I love a beautiful warm glow. So I always, if I'm entertained, I'll use like beeswax candles because it just gives this really honey, yummy, warm glow. And again, like hopefully everything's on dimmers, and you can just control that temperature and that sort of, you know, ambience.
Yeah, dimmers on everything. I think the variation of lighting, like if there are recessed cans in a room, if you can do without them, just don't even turn them on when you're entertaining.
Yeah.
Let it be pendants, let it be lamps, let it be candles, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And watch too. I always find like watching during the daytime, because especially nowadays, you start a dinner party at 8 and it's still daylight. And when it gets dusk, the lights may be too bright, so you've got to dim them. But you know, you want to always keep the nice glow on the face and that sort of thing. I just went to Scottsdale with Lutron and saw their Ketra system, and you know, 2,700 kelvins is like the thing for good lighting. Well, they have the system that's like 1,400 kelvins, that's candlelight, that you can actually do like a little less percentage of now, and the light is just beautiful. That creates all these glows and lamps and things like that.
Wow.
It's pretty fantastic.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So are the fake candles with like the little lights that flicker a no?
No.
There are no.
No.
You heard it here.
Yeah. And it depends. Sometimes, you know, I've done many, you know, weddings or events or dinners that, you know, you just cannot put real flame. And so you kind of start thinking about, okay, what's the hurricane that's going in? Maybe it's sort of frosted, and so you don't really see that it's
is it
a
hidden?
fake.
Yeah.
Correct.
You don't want to see
like
that
outside
thing.
down a pathway or something, but not on a table.
Yeah, and even now, like, they're just these little things that go, but it's no good. No good. They're not chic. They're not chic.
Not chic.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's talk about food and drink. Do either of you have a go-to menu, a go-to bottle or cocktail that's always a hit?
I mean, I'm a fan of a full bar. You know, I am a lush. But I don't like going somewhere where I have to drink wine. If I want to, I will. But I'm a fan of a full bar and a cocktail. I usually will do some kind of signature cocktail because it's easy to serve. If I'm cooking, which is rare, but I'm like a one-pot wonder king. I'm really good at a risotto. I can do a mean soup. I can do a good stew. I love doing like a more casual thing with a salad and that kind of thing. So that's my go-to. And otherwise, I'm hiring somebody to cook.
Good tip.
Yeah, very true. I like sort of, when I get time to cook, I love cooking. And salads and just things that you can kind of just put out. I love sort of more buffet style and like sharing style. That is my favorite sort of way to eat and also cook. But yeah, I think that like my sister's a really great cook, so usually I'll get her to come and cook. But that's probably my favorite sort of Ottolenghi style. That's my favorite kind of food.
Oh yeah, so I love those recipes.
Yeah, and I'm a non-drinker, so very boring. But again, open bar, I think having everything there, and I've got a few little bar trolleys, or sometimes I'll set up like a beautiful table and have like limes and lemons and soda waters and all those different things. They're all beautifully decanted or whatever it needs to be. And then I love that people can help themselves or have one person there helping. And it just feels interactive if that's what, the concept and the story asks for.
And always with the bar, I make sure that there's like a good mocktail, there's a good fun drink for non-drinkers too. I think
we deserve a little sugar hit as well.
You do. You deserve more than just Perrier.
Water. Yeah, correct.
That kind of leads to my next question. So how do you handle food allergies, guests that don't drink? You kind of addressed that.
Yeah.
Do you always accommodate, and where do you draw the line?
I think you have to.
You have to.
Yeah.
I try to be strategic in the questions, and I ask for dietary restrictions. So, I don't want to hear if you don't like mushrooms, but I do want to hear.
Or that day you feel like you don't want to eat pasta.
Yeah. Or if you have but if you have an allergy or if you don't eat, the worst thing for a host would be someone not telling you, and you're sitting there having a dinner party and someone is not eating because they can't eat any of the food. That's much worse than accommodating that, for sure.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'll ask once when the invite goes out, and then just do one more follow-up when for the pre-invite invite, just to double check. Makes it easier, because then the chef has to kind of do something last minute, and then it gets a bit tricky. Or you, if you're cooking, it gets a bit tricky.
Now we're talking about all elements of the party here. So what about music? Do you have a favorite playlist or vibe that you like to set? Whether it's a big dinner party or something more casual, I'd imagine this depends on the theme that we talked about kind of at the beginning, like what theme you're doing.
Yeah, and music is super, that's probably my second passion after interiors. But I always have, a general thing for me, and I've got a playlist in one of the chapters in my book, but Butter, Butter, on Spotify is really great for just some background thing, or Soul in the City. They're my two go-tos, on Spotify. But again, just thinking about what that theme is, Italian summer vibes or, Moroccan, whatever it is, just trying to keep that whole concept and storytelling piece go. Or, live music is always fantastic as well.
Yeah, live music is really fun, I think.
Yeah.
But I'm a total cheater when it comes to playlists. It's not my own. It's always somebody else's. Now it's going to be Butter. For years, I would put on the Hotel Cost. Well, it was CDs for a while. And it was the Hotel Cost stream, but people didn't know about it and think that I had just amazing taste in music. And then they started listening to it. They'd be like, "I just heard an entire album that sounded like your dinner party the other night." I'm like, okay, now I guess
Secrets
I have to But I will if it's a chill dinner party, I'll put on a Dinah Washington jazz station and just let that play, and that's good. But you have to watch it, I think, especially if you're having dinner parties, because if it's kind of quiet, then after dinner, if you want people to go home, then just let it kind of fizzle out. But otherwise, you need to pick up the pace a little bit.
Yeah, or stop, lights off, everyone out.
Yeah. Or disco ball and change the music and everyone dance. Otherwise, one or the other.
Totally, yeah. But I think also live music is when you can do that, and we were at this Catherine Ireland's house the other night. Martin was there with it was such a beautiful space, and we had Mexican food, and then we had this Mexican band, and so everything told the story of of this space, and it was really, really fun. It just gives that something extra. Yeah,
really fun.
Yeah, that was a great party. We didn't discuss this on our pre-call, but I feel like we have to.
Beyonce?
Beyonce. Flowers. I mean, do you have go-to? Obviously, things have to be in season, but do you have kind of a go-to for the types of florals that you like to present and where you place them? And, it always looks beautiful walking into a dinner party and seeing the flowers on the table, but then they're not practical all the time because you can't see the person on the other side. So what is your approach to florals?
Everyone always asks me this because sometimes I've done events where I've had trees coming out the middle of tables. So I always go in with the concept and don't pull back on that. Go big and create the drama, create the story that you want to tell, and you can always strike that off. So 25 centimeters, what do you guys say? Whatever.
Something like that.
Yeah,
Just
this
do
high.
that,
This high, guys. This much.
Okay.
I would need my phone to figure out the centimeter.
Great. And is the standard. But I think you want to come in and you want to feel enveloped by the thing that you've created. So whether it's a tree or whether it's giant, tall palm leaves or whether it's something a bit lower and hedgy, I think just really work on that concept and tell that story, and then you can always kind of shift it, and it almost becomes a piece of theatre, because I think you should never walk into one event and it's just what you see is what you get. There's a start, there's a middle, then at that dinner, then you move things in and out, so then that becomes another sort of act. and then you have dessert. Maybe you get up from the dining table and you move into the lounge room. And so there's always this sort of like piece of theatrical art happening without them knowing it, so make it seamless. But I think it also tells the story of creating that kind of really something special for your guests.
Yeah, yeah. I love it when it just kind of feels like it's been picked in the garden and brought in, even if there's not a garden. And I mean, if peonies are in season for me, it's peonies. And if I'm organized enough, it's like I do the flower arrangements like 4 or 5 days ahead. So they're just starting to kind of die and things are falling off of them. That's when I think they're the most beautiful, especially at night if you like have a candle around them or something like that. I'm not often that organized, but sometimes I am. Sometimes it happens if I've got the time. But also branches and all those things. And I love, like you were saying, I love a big drama moment on a table is fantastic, and then you just move it off when it's time for dinner.
Yeah. But there's so many other things you can do as well. Like I use lots of fruit and vegetables, and I love tablescaping. So fruits and veggies and herbs and all these different things that you can actually use that will actually last long. So we were thinking about sustainability. But I think, again, always coming back to that concept and telling that story.
Yeah. So talking about dinner parties and seated dinners, do you like to use place cards? How do you decide how to arrange guests to keep the energy up?
For me, it's about the number. So if you've got a small group, you want to take the formality out of it if there's like 4, 6, 8 people. I think when you get above sort of like 10, 12 and up to hundreds, you always want to have a bit of a plan of where people are sitting. And I think getting that sort of that space right and who's sitting next to who is really important for conversation, for networking. There's a lot to think about with that. And I think if anyone's seen, the September issue and watching Anna Wintour put all of the different things for the Met Gala and who's sitting where, it can be a really fine art. But if you get it right, it really works. And I've been to many dinners, and I was at one in Milan a month ago, and it was very tricky because they wanted to split everyone up from the different countries because there's someone there from every country, but it didn't quite work. Because it just felt too, and it was great having conversations with different people and meeting different people, but sometimes it was hard to speak to someone who was from, who didn't really speak that much English, or so you have to really kind of watch those nuances because it can make or break an event.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. I love a place card because it's I think if you don't, then you're going to get groups of friends sitting together and couples and that sort of thing. So you do think about like who's the wallflower, who's the chatty Cathy, and like putting them together. And I always do couples. Like if it's a long rectangular table, I'll do a couples not across from each other, but just one over. Yeah. Because there's always going to be that like, honey, what was, honey, who was that? That sort of thing that starts the conversations with other people. And then it's like you're starting it from this way, and you're chatting over here, and everybody's kind of like chatting with each other.
Yeah. So you've got comfort, but you've got just a bit of
you've got your person over there, but they're not like right in front of you, where you're not talking about like who's picking up the kids, tomorrow.
We don't want to hear about that. But I also think, that's why I kind of keep talking about this idea of moving things from space to space, because sometimes you don't want to sit at a dinner party for 3-4 hours at the same table. You want to talk to different people. You want to be in a different space. You want to start with a cocktail, sit down for the main, and then move again for the dessert. That's my ideal kind of format. And sometimes you can't always do that, but for me, that's the best to change it up.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody likes to sit for too long.
No.
Go on.
Do you ever have people get up and change places like for dessert or that sort of thing?
Well, I had some of my friends will sit down, and this happened literally last week, where they came in and they just started moving the place cards.
Oh, that's
a no-no. It's a no-no. It's like, so no one do that. He's on my bad list. But yeah, I think generally, if you're sitting down for dessert at the same dinner table, it's nice to kind of get up and kind of do things. And maybe, putting a console or a buffet on the side, in the dining room and having all the desserts up there, encourage people to get up. You can really kind of move people through spaces how you want by just, by the styling. Yeah.
So let's sit at the table a little longer with dinner parties. So who are your dream table mates, if you could pick a few from any time period?
We'll be here for 5 years.
I know, right?
Yeah, this is a loaded question.
Oscar Wilde. Some of mine are standard, and some of mine are I switch them around. Oscar Wilde's one of them because I could just listen to him talk all day. George Michael, because I would ask him to sing for sure. I might even duet with him, maybe if he didn't want it to. But I also might start crying at the same time, so I don't know if that would work. Hillary Clinton, because I think she would have amazing stories to tell.
Yeah.
Coco Chanel, because she would smoke, and then I would feel bad as a host not smoking with her, so then we could both be smoking and talking and no one could say anything. And Tom Brown's my new addition because I'm obsessed with everything he did at the Met Gala. That was so good, and I would like to ask him a million questions about that.
That is great.
Yeah.
I want all of those people.
Okay. Who are you going to ask?
Yeah, God. Okay, we're going to say Beyonce, obviously.
Oh, yes.
Because I did buy a cowboy hat. Maya Angelou, love her.
Oh, yeah.
Oprah,
Oprah would be great.
of course. Gail can come too because they're besties. Sophie can come because you're my bestie. Cute. I think that's it. Oh, there's probably way more, but I don't want to be here for half an hour. Yeah.
Sounds like a good party, both of them. So speaking of great parties, what's the best party you've thrown and the worst?
That is a great question. I think the worst, maybe it's not the worst, but it was just like something, I host these interior styling masterclasses in Australia, and there was one time where, you can't predict the weather, but I'm always so adamant that I want my vision to come to life. So even checking the weather hours before, I'm like, no, we can still do it. We'll just get a quick marquee, we'll put it over the bocce pit, and we'll have the beautiful lunch out there. It was probably it rained heavier than anticipated, and so there was like pooling, and I was like watching the top of this marquee, and I was like, this is gonna either crash down on everyone. So I was like, you know what, guys? This has been great. We're going to have dessert now in the kitchen. And so we just scrambled and just kind of made it sort of work with umbrellas, getting them from the outside to the inside. But weather also plays an important role. But then I think probably one of my favorite events is my birthday's on New Year's Eve, which is always a bit of a tricky time. But for my 40th a year ago, I was like, I definitely want to do something. So I decided to, I wanted to have it at a few different spaces. So I started down the bottom, by the house. And then I had cars drive people up to the back of the hill where I leveled a space on the side of the hill, which sounds dramatic, but it was quite easy. Country, just get out there, do it. So we leveled a space, and we had this beautiful sort of sit-down dinner with this big long table on the side of the hill at sunset. No lights up there, we just have candlelight. We put a kitchen up there, and then we came back down for dancing and dessert, so that was pretty fun.
That's fun.
That sounds great.
Yeah, it was fun.
I don't know if it was a worst dinner party, but it was definitely the biggest blunder. This was several years ago, but I thank God it was for me. I was having a dinner, and I love doing the table and all that kind of stuff. So the table was set, it was all done. I had the chef that I love, that I've worked with forever, and she we don't even have to talk. She just figures out the menu. She's not gonna tell me till the day of anyways. So it was like an hour and a half before, and that's about normal for her to get there, and she's the only person I wouldn't be worried about. But she wasn't there, so I called her, and I was like, hey, just checking in, what's going on? And she's not just the chef, she's the bartender, she's the server. She brings all the people with her. I had booked her for the next night.
So what did you do?
So I went to Whole Foods. I bought 1,000 of those little tins of caviar. Who the hell eats 1 ounce of caviar? They're the stupidest things ever. But I bought many of them and brought them back with potato chips and creme fraiche. And we did put them in a big bowl so it looked more substantial, or put them in a little bowl so it looked more mounded. And then called my friend, called a bestie, and I was like, come early, you're the bartender. Let's push martinis, they're easy to do, blah, blah, blah. And then I ordered pizza, and we had arugula salad and pizza. So we had caviar first. I didn't tell anybody what had happened until they sat down for dinner, and then we brought out the pizza. They're like, interesting. And I was like, all right, here's the story.
That sounds amazing. That sounds like a great party. I love that.
It turned out great.
Love all those things.
It turned out great. It was super fun. Yes.
And people
But it
actually
was
love
like,
that.
it was definitely an oh fuck moment. When she was like, I'm not coming until tomorrow. And I was like, well, cancel that.
Oh my God.
And what do I do?
That was a
Pivot.
good reaction, though.
That was
You
fast
have to
pivot.
be able to pivot in
Yeah.
situations like that when you're
Absolutely.
entertaining.
Yeah.
You just don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the last question is, what's the best party you've ever attended and why?
Oh, this is still, there's probably more, but this is one that came straight to my mind. Hermes always do a really beautiful party, and I've been to many of them, but the best one I think was they took, it was called Hermes on the beach. So there's this beautiful beach just near Bondi in Sydney, and they just had this swing that looked like a bangle, Hermes bangle, and it was incredible. It felt intimate, but it was personal, and it was, incredible. Just like the space where it was, they shut down this whole park and this beach area, and it was pretty phenomenal. Barefoot, I always love summer barefoot. It's
that's
like,
fun.
it always just takes the pressure off, and everyone just feels instantly relaxed and grounded. And so that was it's a good tip.
I want to go to that party.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
It was very, very fun.
Best party, I mean, it was a wedding in South Africa. A very good friend grew up in Cape Town, and an American got married, and this was in 2020. We actually arrived there on February 1st of 2020.
Wow.
And it was like, first of all, it was just like a phenomenal event of beautiful people, you know, the South Africans, half Americans, and it was like we all knew each other in the first hour, you know, and it was just, you know, weddings like that, they're just so full of love and friendship and fun, and it was beautiful in South Africa, and then we all went on safari, and like,
Wow.
the memories of wearing black tie and getting into one of those open air, you know, things that going through the bush, and literally her wedding was in the bush, and we're all dancing barefoot in black tie, and then the reception afterwards, and going home at night in the dark, the pitch black dark, in these things, and like the guides kind of going off, and like you're seeing animals, and you know, the giraffes walking by and things like that are happening. It was just like phenomenal, but really, it was the people. The people were just so enjoyable and fun, and we all were together for like almost 10 days.
That's so
Amazing.
special.
It was.
That's unbelievable. I'm
And then
gonna
we
go.
came back and shut the country down.
Just in time.
Yeah, really. Oh my gosh.
Amazing. Yeah.
It was great.
Well, I don't know if there's time for questions, but if it doesn't look like someone's telling me to stop. So does anyone have questions for Jay or Steve? Now's the time.
We'll be floating around, so we'll
Yeah. Doesn't look like it.
Yeah.
Oh wait, I see.
Martin Lawrence
Martin
Bullard.
Lawrence Bullard has a question.
Yes, darling.
By the way, if you guys don't follow Steve, you should.
Oh.
He does the most useful things on Instagram. And has like a really wonderful ideas constantly that are fabulous to take and make your own. However,
Thank you.
tell everybody about that incredible dinner you just posted that was on a lake.
Oh, yes.
That was so rad.
Oh, I should have said that one. Thank you, Martin. Yeah. Thank you. You're the very sweetest man and a massive inspiration for me. Yes, I did an event in New Zealand. It was the first time I've been to New Zealand, and it was at the Cloudy Bay Winery. And it's, you know, picturesque. I don't know if anyone's been to New Zealand, but it's very beautiful. This is in Queenstown. And we decided to float this table on their lake that was in the middle of the winery. So we sort of did this platform which you couldn't really see, just sitting in the middle of this sort of pond lake thing. And then we just did this beautiful long table for, I think, 40 people or 50 people. We had everyone put on gumboots, and we had a shoe concierge, and then we sort of walked on this platform, and it was literally like, we were like Jesus walking on water. And it was actually really, really special. It was sort of simple. I kept the styling quite simple, but all the elements were sort of taken from the land. I just wanted to feel like, you know, everything was coming out from the landscape. And again, thinking about those sort of concepts and the story that you want to tell, like how can we create this idea of wanderlust and wonderscape, which is what the event was called. And yeah, it was ethereal, the weather was perfect, it felt magical because, you know, you're taking people out of the context of being grounded and you're kind of putting them in a different sort of structure, and having water, and I find that was, you know, there was a coolness that was coming up from the bottom, and it was very magic, very, very magic.
What was the food?
The food was incredible. It was all local. It was fish, and it was all very sort of tailored. So that was quite formal. But there was this element of sort of informality because we had gumboots on, and everyone was sort of a bit giggly because we didn't want to fall off the platform. And so there was an element of fun and sort of, you know, playfulness and whimsy. And I think those elements, when you get all those elements right, you know, polished, great food, great wine, a really nice sort of space and landscape, and then I think that's you know, it created something quite magic. Thank you.
There's another question right here.
This panel has been at food so far. I have sort of a practical question, so I apologize.
No.
But with the tablescapes, it feels like, you know, you can really create quite an inventory of stuff. And do you have any sort of storage hacks or fun ways to store all of that stuff?
Yes. I have a lot, and my thing is more style, and I do lots of projects and events and things. And so in storage, I have lots of like just really organized racking, and I've got, I don't know how, I'm not going to say the number, but thousands of napkins and tablecloths and things that are custom made. So like I'll get things cut like a 12-meter long custom made tablecloth, and that's fringed and all that. So I get everything laundered, and then everything goes straight into the tubs. It's all labeled, so I know that this is a grey velvet cloth with fringed edge, or this is green striped napkins or white embroidered Italian napkins. And then I have the same for all the crockery. So I have, again, a lot of plates. And so everything's sort of organized in colors, and so I know that when I need to go there, or even candles, there's like tapered candles, pillar candles, beeswax candles, colored, votives, hurricanes, so everything's sort of organized, which I know sounds crazy, but this is what I do, and so I try to have it all organized and ready for, I guess, anything, because sometimes things will change and shift, and so you want to kind of be ready, but also just organization. If you're taking it from one space to the next, or you decide to do it not in the house, but you want to do it in the backyard or by the pool, it's easy to kind of transport. So yeah, boring, but great question. Like in terms of the storage, not your question, the question was great. But you've got to think about those things, because honestly, half of what we do, and I think everyone here that's creative will attest, most of what we do is logistics. Functional, practicality. There's 10% of like the story and the pretty and oh my God, but most of it is like, how can we get this organized, logistically done, well and easy, so it's not too stressful for everyone.
Yeah, it's like organizing your obsessions.
Yeah, yeah. And it's actually quite fun. I think everyone who's like slightly creative has a bit of OCD, and so having all of that like together just makes me very happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not quite as prolific, but for myself, I just think about when I'm buying something, which it's always like, oh my God, I love those plates. Oh my God, I love these napkins. I think about like, okay, what does this work with something I already have? Like, can I mix and match and repeat and that sort of thing? So
yeah.
I might have like 10 sets of dishes, or 12.
Yeah. Or 50.
But they might be like only 12 place settings or something like that. I might have to like mix the dishes together too.
Yeah.
But I make sure that, okay, these napkins would work with something, or these napkins would work with nothing, so I have to start over. I might not get them, or I might get them and think, oh, I'm going to find something else to work with them later.
But I think that's also quite fun as well, because we're always constantly collecting, and because it's it's all top of mind, it's what we do. And I was in Martin's store yesterday, and I was like, God, if I buy one more piece of silverware or a tumbler like this, oh my God, in the cabinet behind the, incredible. And so I was like, do I need this? And I've got so much. I'm literally turned into my mother with all of the things like behind cabinets. But it's what we do and it's what we love, and I think that is fun. Like you said, Jay, like to mix and match from one event to the next. Everyone should have a white dinnerware service, and then play with it from there.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I sort of more philosophical question that relates to Jay's story about the wedding in South Africa. You said that after a very short period of time, everyone felt like best friends. What do you attribute that to?
Great question.
I attribute it to the bride and the groom. I think they were both lovely, warm, wonderful people who have great groups of friends. The groom, and I knew the bride because she lived in San Francisco. The groom, I got to know him in San Francisco as well, but his friends were all like, there were probably, I don't know, it was a small group, first of all, so there were probably like 40 people. And his friends were some friends that he'd had for years, and then some new friends in San Francisco and that sort of thing. Same with the bride. Some American friends and people that she'd grown up with that she'd known for years. And so the personalities just kind of meshed together, and everyone was just happy to be there, excited to celebrate them. And there's still people that I text with that I met there that live in South Africa that I said, I'm coming back next year. That was 5 years ago.
They need to have an anniversary party, right?
Exactly.
A vow renewal.
Yes. A
Get the
repeat.
gang back together.
Yes.
Any other questions?
I have two quick. One, table. Do you guys always prefer one long table versus round or any other two? And I'll just answer the second one number two. Bars. Do you guys, depending on the space, do you think it's better to have a couple bars that are all full bars, or have like a specialty cocktail bar or wine and beer bar?
Great question.
I love one long table. I mean, I will do my best to make that happen. And sometimes you know, the private dining in my hotel, if it can do 20 people in one long. So if we've got more than 20, then we'll do 2. And that's when we do the switch. We'll have the 2 in people. We'll have people switch for dessert, just to kind of mix it up. But I love one long table. It just makes it feel very special and great. And the bars, I don't know. I tend to like put everything like in a couple of places so everybody can get it wherever. So it's not like, was that champagne over there or was the champagne bar over here?
But to the point, sometimes it changes, and it should change. So not everything is the same structure from party to party. And so sometimes it'll be like a beautiful bar set up with all the different spirits and spritzers and limes and wedges and all that kind of thing. Otherwise, it'll be a beautiful, trolley with champagne. And then this is what I did for an event that I just did last year. There was a couple of trolleys in this sort of beautiful, surrounded by this fountain in the garden. And so I had a trolley of champagne and then a trolley of caviar, and so just it changes all the time. But I think always having some specific, especially if it's a bigger event, you want something where people can go to. But just for practicality-wise, you want a back bar, but then also a front-facing bar as well. And then again, you can never beat one long table. It's just dramatic, and always shoots well. I think everything in repetition, so 30 chairs down one side or 10 chairs down one side, everything en masse and in that sort of repetitious line always looks really striking.
Yeah.
Question down here? Yes.
I'm a builder, and the architectural details, I'm all over. Interior design details, all over.
Yeah.
My tables are so disappointing. I have a beautiful home that I love to entertain,
Yeah.
but I always disappoint myself.
Oh.
When it goes down to that level,
Yeah.
it's kind of like my fashion view. I'm like, I can't dress the table.
You look amazing.
Everything else is beautiful, but
Yeah.
how do I get these tables? So what I want to ask you is, what is a website you love that's like a great curation for a dummy to go and just like buy a beautiful table?
Yeah.
First thing you have to do is go buy his book right after this, and that will be your inspiration for years to come.
Tell me how to draw.
I do love lots of tables. There's lots of tablescapes on my social media and in the book. But I think for me, I don't know, I think you're selling yourself short to start off because you look great. And I think everyone has a design eye, right? And so what I like might not necessarily be something someone else likes, And so I think you can never go wrong with just flowers en masse. My go-to is a white hydrangea because you can just put them in, cut them short. That's my go-to with flowers. Cut things short and create like a beautiful mass of head down the middle. Oh, it depends on the story and the concept, but most of the time, absolutely. It just elevates everything. And especially my dining room at home, it's this black ebonized table, so it kind of gets a bit tricky to kind of scratches and all that kind of thing. So I always have just a plain white linen cloth, and that always elevates anything. But I think again, just keep it simple and just set it really nicely. Everything in repetition always looks great. Yeah. Candles, if nothing else. Candles, all the way down the middle of the table, and you can't go wrong. And I think, I don't know,
That's my only
Aaron,
is candles, but
yeah.
I feel like I need chargers and linens and
No.
butters and how.
Yeah, you can.
So
Having a beautiful napkin,
Yeah. Yep.
and some beautiful silver, or get vintage silver, or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the plate can be white or the plate can be colored or whatever, but repetition, I think also, repeating, whether it's a long row of flowers like he was talking about, or small vases that are repetition. Repetition just looks great down a table. So you do that, have a beautiful napkin, repetition down the table, and candles everywhere, and you're gonna be golden.
Simple, yeah. Because I think a lot of people, they get overwhelmed and they'll see different things. And so yes, get inspired by other people, but don't get bombarded, because same with interiors. One day I want a velvet navy blue sofa, and then the next day I want a yellow sofa. So stick true to that blueprint and that style and your kind of concept, and just keep it on mass and keep it simple. Because sometimes when you have different things, I want to have 10 different varieties of flowers because I got so confused when I was at the market. But I think if you just cut it down to one, it just always looks chic. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great advice. Were there any more questions?
Cool.
I think not. So thank you so much. Oh wait, is there one more?
Well, I was just gonna. I have 2 questions that can I get an invite to your next dinner? And then the other one is,
I'll go with the caveat
when
one.
you are thinking about the morning after, and well, I guess actually the question is more about what your if there's a take-home gift for your guests. Are you thinking about that too as you're planning at the front of the theme?
good question.
My favorite thing is to do, and I actually stole this from my friend who's a very well-known chef, Donna Hay in Australia, and she always does this little like take-home pack afterwards. So it's like after dinner cookie or before bed cookie or chocolate or something, and then she goes to the next level and she gives teas for like the night before or the next morning. So she has, and again, something that kind of goes with the concept, and it's always like a little moment from what we've just had that keeps it going into the next day to take home. And obviously she does something that's edible, but I kind of love that. But then I just did this party for a friend the other week, and you know, we love our hippie woo-woo stuff. And so we had crystals on the table, like these beautiful red crystals, and then I had grapes, and then I had candles. And then so for everyone's place setting, I gave them a piece of white quartz, and I tied it around to the place card, and so they actually took that home. So I think you can kind of having something that people can take and kind of remember that moment in time is really important.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, I think I've done similar things, but I don't know that I plan it for everyone. It just depends on if you're honoring somebody or how many people it is and that sort of thing. But often we'll do something edible. One of my go-to things is C's Candy. They do this bridge mix, which is like completely addictive, and I will have it out in small bowls, but I'll also do like a little small bag of it for people to take home. That's kind of a go-to.
Yeah.
Or if the chef has done cookies, they might do cookies or something like that. But I also like, I will tell people to take home the flower arrangements, especially if there are a lot of them and there's enough for everyone to take home.
Yes.
I'll please encourage people to take them home.
Yeah.
So.
Or if
Helps
you're my
with the
mother,
cleanup.
she will just grab them and take them
Yes.
They're gone.
She deserves to.
I do love her.
Your mother sounds amazing.
She's pretty bad.
Well, thank you everyone so much for coming. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Design LA. Thank you, Jeff and Steve. And stick around because Steve will be doing a book signing. So yeah, thanks everybody.